You're listening to The Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Practical Wealth Show. And so I'm excited to have a great guest today. So today's guest is Nichole Stohler. And Nichole is the founder and host of the Richer Geek podcast. And so Nichole helps IT and other high-income professionals find creative ways to build wealth and financial freedom while working full-time in technology. Nichole and her husband have built a real estate investment firm with an impressive portfolio that includes a hotel, multifamily, and residential properties. Nichole believes that it is not only possible, but essential that others in high-income roles find ways to make money work for them. And she's here to share some of her proven techniques for doing just that. Nichole, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Hi, Curtis. It is fantastic to be here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And so I kind of want to, so let's back up. So you work in the technology field. What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
You're in Phoenix, okay, on the West Coast. And you love what you do. What led you to deciding that, hey, we need to do something in addition to what we're doing?
It's such a great question. It's actually a two-parter. The first is that when my husband and I were first married in about 2 years into our, just kind of getting started, building up ourselves in our careers, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that particular book gave us a mindset of, hey, we should be doing something besides just working. And that whole premise was very new to us. Nobody in our family was entrepreneurial by any means. And specifically real estate appealed to us from that book, although Kiyosaki will talk also about owning a business. So it's not necessarily that he's just saying real estate. Right. So we started investing and we failed that very first time around. And that was a good lesson learned. There's a lot of things that very, very positive things that came out of that. And then what happened is when we got back into investing again, because we took a little bit of a break, the whole piece was realizing, okay, something's missing here. W-2 income, investing in 401k, additional investments, in the stock market, that is just not enough. And I just felt like, okay, we could be doing more. And kind of went back to the roots of that book and that premise behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Going from there, so I heard part of the story. And so did you buy a bunch of houses on a credit card?
So here's the thing. Remember that it was 1999. So right. Things were a lot different.
Right.
All the things that were different. So I read that book. I said, oh my gosh, we've got to do this. I'm a very big action taker when I decide. Go after it. So signed us up for a seminar. We came back and a lot of the seminar was focused on finding and obtaining properties, which is fine, but that is only a tiny piece of what is required to really be successful in real estate, I guess, unless you're a wholesaler. Then you're finding and then you're flipping to someone else. But in our case, we found these properties creatively and we were able to get seller financing, but we needed down payments and we didn't have any funds for that. So in 1999, you could still do cash advances in larger amounts against your credit cards, which is what we did, which was part of a downward spiral of a bad choice.
Right. And so, but the thing is, y'all didn't quit and you kept working. So see, because I know, because I listened to your show, part of the break, your husband started working at a property management. And so he kind of figured it out from the inside.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having that bad first initial experience was actually the most positive thing that could have ever happened to us. One, because my husband did go work in a property management and really understands the business. Yeah. But two, when you have failed like that, you step back and you say, what were the lessons learned? And we're not
Yeah.
going to do that again. And I think it was really good to learn at an early stage because we're very conservative investors now in our real estate portfolio. We don't go all crazy.
See, I think that's a really good point because you didn't quit. You took a step back and figured out, what did I learn from this? I was talking to somebody the other day, and they went through something and they just have a bad taste in their mouth and they're just out the game. And they really can't afford to be. This is with like a business thing, and they'll jump from thing to thing to thing. And most people don't give their efforts time to compound. They just don't stay in stuff long enough and figure it out.
I would agree.
Let's talk about, because we talked about this, we don't believe in like living on less. Let's talk about creating financial independence while still enjoying the lifestyle that you've grown accustomed to.
That's something I'm a big believer in. One, I do believe everyone needs a plan B. You need to be doing something. And I'm not saying it has to be real estate. As an example, on my podcast, I interview folks who own a franchise or built up a business. I think you need to be doing something. And we even talk about ways that you can be doing something when you're working, 80 plus hours a week, because there's a place for everyone based on where you are.
Right.
But I think if you look at yourself and your family and your finances as a business, and any business, just take any business that has one major client and that's it. And if that major client goes away, they're in a bad position. Any business that has a high valuation, this business is worth $100 million, but it only brings in $500K a year. So if you look at yourself as a business, your net worth doesn't really mean a lot if you're not getting cash flow.
Right.
Your income streams, if you lose an income stream for whatever reason, that's like losing your biggest client and you don't have a backup plan. So I believe that to maintain and to feel comfortable and to enjoy your lifestyle and not be paranoid or worried or have a scarcity mentality, you need to figure out ways to build up that other cash flow while working full-time. I like to call it the W-2 entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that. I would hug you if you were right here in the same room, because I tell people all the time is that you're the CEO of your life. You have to see yourself in business. And I'm a big Dan Kennedy follower. He says one is the worst word in business because in Pennsylvania they call it a free will state. And I always tell people, look, do y'all know that you can get fired for one or two reasons? Any reason or no reason at all. See, and in my mind, that's risky. Okay. And like just having one client that could let you go. And so you need to have more than one way to make money. Then you'll be less stressed out. And so that is a fantastic philosophy. And I like the W-2 entrepreneur because, see, if you have a good salary, you really have to have a business or do real estate or all of the above, because what does that do? Because I heard your husband talk about this, for you all having these side businesses from a tax standpoint. How has that been helpful for you?
Significantly helpful. In fact, this year, and I think we could have done better. I would say that we're always learning too, because a big part of the tax benefits is the right type of assets. You would definitely need to be working with a CPA or a financial advisor to figure out where to place assets. So I feel like there's even greater tweaks we could be making, but we dropped down in our tax bracket as a result of real estate investments by 10%, which is pretty significant. But I can tell you, I've met people that I've interviewed for the show that have figured out, and they're owning a business and they're making investments that the government's giving them tax incentives for, in addition to owning real estate and property, and they're able to drop down significantly more. So I know that there's a lot of incremental strategies that we could probably be implementing. Right. I would say at a surface level, it's fairly straightforward and easy owning investment real estate long term.
Okay, fantastic. Talk about, Nichole, some of the things that y'all have done and some of your people you interview that you've seen that are people that are, W-2 entrepreneurs. As people think about, hey, I need a plan B, what are some areas that people might want to look at to get started?
I think it does. You do have to kind of start with an analysis of your situation.
Yes.
And because it's a little bit challenging. In technology, people are working most of the time way more than 40 hours a week. And especially because technology breaks and suddenly there's an issue and your whole weekend turns into troubleshooting. There's a lot of pieces with that. So you have to kind of ask yourself, what's the time that you have available?
Mm-hmm.
What's the capital that you have available? Where do you live? Those are pieces that will help shape what makes the most sense for you. And then the possibilities are really endless. I like that. I had a gentleman on the show who talked about semi-absentee franchises. One of the things that he mentioned was you do not have to have this unique, amazing, novel idea, which I think sometimes people get hung up on. Oh, I want to build a business. What should I do? I want to do something online. I need to think of something or a cool app or some neat software. You can just own a laundromat.
Right.
And
Right.
supplement your lifestyle. And are you passionate about laundromats? No, probably not, but it's okay because it's supplementing or adding to your lifestyle. So I thought that was a great point, is it doesn't have to be amazing. Well, I'll give you another point. We do own residential homes.
Mm-hmm.
Our homes are not the kind that they're nice, but they're not flipped homes, so they don't have a before and an after. They're not on Instagram. They're not what you see on HGTV.
Right.
They're clean, they're safe. Somebody moves into them and they live in them.
Right.
And so there's nothing sexy about that. It is just solid and it works.
Building wealth is boring. It's like, it's not sexy. It's not all that stuff you see on TV. It's like your product, if you're doing residential, is safe, clean, affordable housing. And, so on our show, I've interviewed several like turnkey providers in Memphis and, at Birmingham. I had one of our clients buy 2 or 3 properties in Birmingham, and they're not the Taj Mahal, but they're nice and people live in them, and they have, I've scanned down the street, they're not, they've got boats and pickup trucks with boats on the back. I mean, and they're enjoying their life, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And, if they're generating $300 a month, you get 10 of them, that's $3,000 a month. That's a big deal.
And then all the tax benefits and everything else.
That's right. That's right. And so if you're making money, because one of the things that we talk about when you look at Rich Dad Poor Dad, since we both are students of that, there's 4. What I talked about and what we teach on our show is there's 4 asset classes, right? There's business, real estate, paper assets, and when I talk about paper, I'm not necessarily talking about mutual funds and stuff. I've interviewed people on what they call life settlements. There's private lending. There are people that buy mortgages, and so because the emphasis is cash flow, you can't eat net worth, right? You can't eat equity, and so you go on vacation with cash flow. Okay, that's how you live your best life, to quote Snoop Dogg. Talk about your all investing. So I know you invest in your asset class because y'all like it. It really interests you. Of choice is real estate. So what are the types of things that you guys do?
So we actually started in multifamily because that is the type of property management my husband went into, large 500, 600 unit apartment complexes.
Mm-hmm.
We started in smaller. We did not start with 500. We started in smaller apartment complexes, and they're called the sub 100, so under 100 unit type of complexes, but outside of 4 units, because now you're in commercial loans and that type of thing. We also have a hotel, and we just put a second hotel under contract.
Wow.
So the hotel business has been very interesting. Actually, to a point here is I talked about my husband having this experience in multifamily. And you may wonder, well, wait a minute, now you have a hotel, and how did that come about? it came about because of networking and relationships and forming a relationship with someone that could help educate and train us. Because having failed in that very beginning, we don't invest in anything. Like we're not going to go out and buy self-storage units. We're not going to buy a mobile home park. We're not going to buy retail if we don't have an advisor to help us, because we've been in a situation where that didn't work. So we want to understand and get the support and the help we need. So we have that with the hotel, which after that one has been doing well, gave us the confidence, okay, we're ready to go do another one. So, and then we have the residential homes that I talked about, which are long-term rentals. We're not in the short-term rental space, which is another space I am, don't know and wouldn't jump into without some thorough examination and help.
Right. See, also, I want you to get what a theme there is that they take action, one, but they get a mentor, they get somebody to guide them. So, because the mistakes have already been made. You don't need to be what do they say? You can tell pioneers because they have arrows in their back. You don't need to, to be a pioneer, and just kind of, get somebody to help you walk through the landmines and that your way to have the confidence to move forward. When you said something, it made me have the thought was that as people, if they're doing well, they kind of get comfortable and complacent and they don't want to take risks. What are some of the biggest fears that you guys and or other people that you see have to overcome to begin to want to look at something outside of their good job?
That's a great question, especially because a lot of the folks that my podcast is geared toward people who are in technology. The folks in that industry tend to be wanting to do very thorough analysis, which is completely fine. And then there's a point where it's sometimes hard for them to make that leap, right? Because they're doing a lot of analysis and then a little bit of a fear. So one of the things that I talk about is take a look at the last, and especially because we just went through a big recession and everybody remembers that. And especially we were hit pretty hard here in Arizona. And look at the space that you want to be in. We actually, Mike and I really, Mike is my husband, we heavily advocate that if you're dipping your toe into real estate investing, the most solid, stable place you can be is a single family, B-class, long-term rental. Yeah. Because you're not counting on a high economy. You're not counting on, you're not paying a ton for this house that you have to rent for a high amount. Right. You're not counting on a short-term rental. You're not saying, wow, people are going to have a lot of discretionary income and they're going to be traveling. You're looking for a family who wants a home to live in. Right. And there's a lot of those out there. And so we feel like, okay, that's the place to go. Now, if you're scared, you're worried about the risk. Well, gosh, what if I buy this house and then the same thing happens and now the house isn't worth as much as it was, like we saw back in 2008 and 2007? The answer to that is look at historical rents. Look at a 20-year horizon. That data is readily available. Find out what was the lowest that rent was at the worst point. And mortgages currently are at still really, really low rates. So you get a fixed 30-year mortgage. There's pretty much, that is so stable. For 30 years, nothing's going to change with that mortgage.
That's right.
Now you look at that lowest rent ever. Can you still make money after you pay your mortgage and you look at your expenses that you would have, your insurance, your taxes, that type of thing? Can you still make money, even if it's $100 a month? And then when it's great, maybe you're making $600 a month. But if you're holding on to that long term, you can't go wrong. You just have to have that thorough analysis that gives you the comfort level and you say, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you have to think long term because markets go through cycles. But I was listening to somebody says, well, my husband's worrying about this and that. He's preparing for a real estate crash. I was like, listen, real estate is regional. And if you buy it right, I don't care if the value of the house went to zero. If they're paying their rent, it still works as long as you go in right. And so doing your due diligence as you guys do and doing your homework. So that's really good words of wisdom, guys. So take some notes on that. So I have like half page of notes and talking to Nichole. So, this is, we try to learn on this show. Cole, here's a question I have is, what do you think it takes to be a successful woman in a male dominated field? What do you think you do differently, or what are some of the traits that you think that help you win?
This is an interesting question because both real estate investing and also technology are, predominantly male dominated, although I would say the tech industry is just doing an amazing job of really building up, helping educate, students in as early as grade school and high school. You see girls who code. There's a lot of support and involvement for including women. Honestly, I feel like the basics of working hard and doing a good job and then not taking things personally is how you're successful. I think you have to have a thick skin in real estate specifically, right? Because you are going to be dealing with handyman and contractors, and you have to know what you want. So
right.
you go after what you want. You work hard in technology. You work hard. You work as hard, better, because you just want to be a model employee, no matter if you're a male or a female.
Right.
And you're successful because of that. And I don't think there's been actually a detriment one way or another. I think some people might be intimidated, like if you're sitting at a table and there's 10 men and there's only one woman. But I never look at that as feeling like anyone's against me. I'm 100%, I'm all in to get the job done. And that's my focus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love to hear that. I have 3 daughters, so I want to get that out there. So I don't, just win. and giving examples of that in terms of like, what are you reading or involved in, getting better? Do you have a routine that you do to like kind of work on yourself and take good care of yourself?
Yes, I do. First of all, I love to read different types of business books across a broad spectrum. So I will read sales books. I'm reading a lot about digital marketing because that's an area that's very new and kind of foreign to me. Mm-hmm. I just read a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which is a fantastic book about negotiating. Highly, highly recommend that book. So I am a big advocate for reading. I'm also really needing to keep up with real estate trends, especially on a local basis. I do read on a regular basis the Phoenix Business Journal because I want to see what's happening within our region. I'm also watching apartment complex sales. I'm looking at the per unit pricing. I'm looking at what they purchased the apartment complex for, how long they've held it, and then how they were able to, did they force appreciation and turn a profit as a result? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at hospitality industry as it relates to hotel and trends that are happening there. And then as a result of having a podcast, and because I'm not limited to just real estate investing, and I'm really trying to focus on all of the different avenues for someone in tech, I am constantly looking for people in tech that are doing something that I can bring onto the show, a peer that can talk about, hey, I work full time and I own this kiosk or I own this franchise. Yeah. So I'm constantly reading that kind of information, whether it's in Facebook groups or within Reddit or those areas, because I'm looking for people to join and share their story.
That's fantastic. Nichole, how can our listeners, if they want to follow you and get more information or just, kind of what they call cyber stalk you and learn more about what you guys are doing, what you're up to, where can our listeners go to find you?
I love that you called it cyber stalk. That is hilarious. All right. I would just recommend that you go to my website. In a good way, a good way. I'd recommend that you go to the podcast website, which is the Richer, RICHER, Geek, GEEK.com, and then / practical wealth. I have a couple of things on that particular website. As an example, I've had people ask me, okay, I have 4 homes as long-term rentals. How do I get into multifamily? So we have a little multifamily quick start, which has
nice.
some tips and then some things that you need to think about. Like, for example, your lease addendums. You're going to have different addendums in multifamily than you would in a single family home, because you have got people living in a community together, and that changes what needs to be in the lease as an addendum. So we've got some of those things in there that people can pull down and use. So again, therichergeek.com/practical wealth.
Awesome. We thank you for that. Well, my mind is racing, but I want to be respectful of your time. So listen, Nichole, thank you so much. I think that our listeners, you shared some serious gold on our show today, and I'm appreciated. So I want you to go out there and check out her podcast, check out the gift that she's offered you guys. We're going to put the link in the show notes, so just go there and click the site. Nichole, any parting words of wisdom for us?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes. Thank you so much. So guys, hey, this has been another great episode of the Practical Wealth Show. Go out there and make prosperity happen.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.